Now, what makes a great trader?
If it's a market leader and it's fallen out of grace, that's when I wake up and start. It was making headlines for being like one of the worst listings ever, but it was a great company.
Saudi Arabia is the Texas of the Middle East.
Welcome to Talking Markets. I'm Michael Wilson, and I'm joined by my good friend of many years and a veteran of the city, David Buik. David,
Greetings, Michael.
Welcome to this episode. And I'm very pleased to say our special guest on this particular broadcast is Bryan Coyne, who has been around for 40 years internationally, but his latest job really, I suppose, and has been going for a long time, non-executive director of BGC, but a man of many parts, which we will explore. You've been around for 40 years. What keeps you going into the office every day?
Well, thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. My love of the markets hasn't changed from the day I first started. I've been fortunate enough to find an occupation that actually pays me to do what I would do for free. So wow. I'm very fortunate. I love the markets. I love trading. I love the concept of waking up in the morning, looking at the markets, analyzing, deliberating, cogitating, and then putting my money to work. And when you get it right, the feeling of beating the system is the best feeling, and you get rewarded with the financial gains as well. So it's a win-win-win for me.
What I've always been amazed with you, and we've been chums for over 20 years now, is the fact that you're not a one-trick pony. You look at everything. And that tells me that you're a great trader. Now, what makes a great trader?
Thank you, David. So what I try and do is invest in undervalued real markets. And what I mean by that is if it's a market leader and it's fallen out of grace in any sphere, that's when I wake up and start looking. That my systems will pick up. Prime example, Facebook. When it listed, it had a disastrous listing. The market started at $41 and went down to below 20. So everyone that invested in the IPO was getting absolutely killed.
Slaughtered, yeah.
And I remember, and it was making headlines, which people won't even remember now, for being like one of the worst listings ever. But it was a great company. It had everything that you needed to be a great company. It was a market leader, it was innovative, and its price was falling. So I never bought it on the IPO. I bought it when it was being decimated and all the news was bad. So it's a share that I've held from $20 till today because I still believe in that business. So any market in any sphere, Boeing is another prime example. All the news we're getting at the moment is negative. Yeah. They've got new management. They are having disasters with their the 787. 737, I beg your pardon, the 737
MAX, yeah.
Yes, so that's getting negative publicity, and really what has happened is they've had a couple of manufacturing defects from people not following through in safety procedures, and that has put the share under pressure, and I'm buying it because Boeing's not going anywhere, and they'll resolve those issues, and it doesn't have many competitors. It has one competitor.
If you take Pratt & Whitney away and Airbus away, there's not much left, is there?
Correct.
Yeah.
So you need a market leader that's fallen out of love with the market, and those are the markets that I look to invest in.
And I also think as well, taking Boeing as an example, I mean, there's a company, as David says, nobody's going to replace them. They're not going anywhere. Yeah, they've had their problems. But I mean, this is precisely one of the questions as an investor that you ask, don't you? You say, well, all right, so it's so big, it's falling. Who's going to replace it? What's going to get in its way? Answer, very, very little. So that's Boeing. Can I just take you to United States stock market as equities in general? We're facing, obviously, they're facing an election this year, et cetera, et cetera. There's all that political uncertainty. What do you feel about US equities in general?
So I'm going to say something. I am 85% in cash in the United States market at the moment. I have small positions in Boeing and Facebook.
But bubble is a problem, potentially.
Not so much as a bubble, but the political uncertainty of the two candidates and what's going to happen with their camps and what's going to happen with interest rates and what, I've had a great first 3 months. So my performance for the year is enormous. And I've gone into cash. I love AI. I think it's too expensive, but I love it.
Have you been on the NVIDIA bandwagon there
yes,
for a while?
But I bought NVIDIA at 200 and I unfortunately sold it at 500. So I've left a lot of money on the table in NVIDIA. But I would look to rebuy it. I would look, I'm not going to get 500, I don't think. But I think with what's going to happen with the elections, there's going to be nervousness, there's going to be a hiccup here, a fall there, and I'll use those opportunities to get fully invested again.
So you're a dip man, really?
Yeah, but I do not believe in shorting the markets, ironically. So, and to short a market, you can only make 100%.
Yeah.
And those are not the returns I look for. 100% is not worth getting out of bed.
Wow. If I didn't know you so well, I would say there was a touch of arrogance there, but I love it.
So I'm a believer that you rather look to buy something that can go 1,000%, 5,000, 10,000% than waste your time looking for things that are too expensive that are going to go down. So anything, and that's negative energy. I don't believe in negative energy. I'm not looking for things that are going to crash and say, well, great, I shorted this, it went from 100 to 60. How great am I? I'd rather look for something that I could buy at 60. So
that makes sense. Well, look, that fills in quite nicely with the performance of Japan, which, when we go back to '89, when I think it was near enough 39,000, doesn't matter, went down to a low, I think, of just over 8,000 in 2020, about the time of the COVID thing. We're through 40,000. Now, do you like Japan, or do you think this is just making up for lost time?
When I started in the markets in '86, the Japanese market was around these levels. And then I've just watched a bear market my whole working career, and it's turning around, and that's all to do with the yen. But it's a market that I'm nervous of because I don't know enough about it. It's taken them so long to get back to their all-time highs.
I think there's a couple of things that, two of them you'd say was trivial, but the Rugby World Cup and the Olympics, despite the fact of COVID, certainly put Japan more on the market. And this incestuous behavior between investing in each other's companies, which was dreadful and seriously seen through by many people, that seems to have, on a regulatory basis, to have sorted it out. Whether we've had a rally that's just about to peak, I don't know. But I just think that they seem to be much better organized than they were.
Most definitely. But if you're going to invest in that region, I'd rather invest in China or India. I want to invest in regions where you have a growing economy with population, where you've got infrastructure that needs to be developed. Japan is a fully developed country.
Yeah, definitely.
If you wanted to invest in that region, India, China, those are markets that excite me a lot more. And when the war ends, I want to get back into Russia, because that's a market that's also got great potential, but you can't touch it with, well, first of all, I don't think Americans are allowed to invest in it, but I wouldn't invest until the war ends.
So he's sort of run through BRICS,
well, in a roundabout way.
Yes. In a roundabout way.
Bryan won't mind me saying this. He also, at the time when, about 10 years ago, got quite badly burnt temporarily by Russia, didn't you, at one time?
Russia's been a very difficult market to trade for non-Russians.
Yeah,
and I think the same with Japan. For the first time now, if you're a buy and hold player, which is what I really am, Japan is performing. But have a look at the returns for India and have a look at the returns of the other markets. They're exponential.
So there's Russia. Let's just briefly, because we were going to encapsulate all this in a question about BRICS, but you've done a few of those. So we've done a bit of Russia. What about Brazil?
Brazil, the politics there is a problem for me. They've got serious political issues between the two presidential candidates. I'm nervous of that market for that reason. I like it. It's got all the underlying resources that a country should need for growth. And the commodity sector of that market, I believe, has got great potential. But The financial sector I would leave alone, and I would be more concerned with standing on the sideline and wait for some serious buying opportunities which aren't there yet, in my opinion.
One of the things, and this is a very naive question, which I know you can answer easily, but getting money out of China, India, and Brazil. There you are, a resident of the United Kingdom, you've got X pounds, you want to get them out. Do you ever see a situation where the political issues in either China, India, or Brazil could give you, if I may say so, a South African headache?
Exchange traded funds, David. Best thing.
Got
You
it.
go with the big boys, BlackRock. They cover just about all of these markets.
Don't get smart and do it yourself.
No, just buy the indices in those markets and let them worry about the intricacies of getting the money in and out. For a simple investor like myself, that's what I would, that's the route that I take.
So don't make problems for yourself. If it's
No.
not necessary.
Don't
Yeah.
invest domestically in any of these markets. Rather utilize a derivative in Europe, America,
Yeah.
or an exchange traded fund, but I wouldn't go directly.
Can I do one final
Yeah,
thing
do.
on this? Because you've hinted at this. How do you know what is going on in these countries? Because, you know what I'm going to say. It's China's almost opaque, isn't it? In India, well, there's a story there. Brazil, there's a story there. Russia, who knows? How do you actually find, or do you just, as you say, just buy the market?
So, my investment philosophy is, as I said earlier, look for underperforming assets. Or if I go into McDonald's and there's a line and my kids are talking to me about we want to go to McDonald's because they're having a 2-for-1 promotion, and you physically go in and you have to line up to get your McDonald's,
Yeah.
and then you've got to line up to pay, it's doing well. That's what I see with
That's
my
the
own
message.
eyes. So when I see what's going on in India, and you see that there's development and there's a million new entrepreneurs a month coming in online, I have a look at the market and go, oh, this is on a trajectory to the moon. Either I'm going to wait for a dip to try and buy it, or I'll put my toes in on a dollar cost averaging. And that's the basis. So I would look at a macro picture of the country and make my decisions on that. Nothing too complicated and nothing too advanced.
Fascinating. I mean, there's obviously an awful lot more to go. I need to just ask you something, if I may, Bryan, because last time we met, I said, and I meant this in a positive way, I said, how does a sophisticated bloke like you want to work in the United Arab Emirates without all the trappings that go with sophistication? And you said, attitude. You said people want to work there. They really want to make the next buck. And they're really into it. And I assume that the same applies to Saudi Arabia. What we've just seen, there was articles in the Sunday Times saying that Saudi Arabia, because oil might go from them in 50 years' time, want to get hold of the economic bit, for want of a better expression. Is it an attitude of mind that makes you so upbeat about the United Arab Emirates?
So, United Arab Emirates is a fantastic country to live in, to bring your family up, and if you're an entrepreneur. And I have 2 daughters, and they love it, and there's no problems there at all for women and for anyone. They believe that people want to live, make money, and look after their families, and they do everything possible to make sure that that can happen in a safe, open environment where everyone respects everyone. And the beautiful thing about the UAE and the fact that it's run by the Sheikh is they make decisions instantly. They decided, they could see, for example, that their weekly calendar was not working with the business environment. They used to have Thursday to Sunday was the week. The Sheikh announced in November 2 years ago, right, from the 1st of February, Monday to Friday, like everyone else. Boom, it happened. No deliberations, no...
So they're very pragmatic.
Very, very much so. The property market was looking a little dodgy. They decided, right, what we need to do is we need to lower deposit thresholds and drop stamp duty. And they acted within... On a Thursday, the decision was made, and by Sunday, it was in law. The country is built to look after the people. And that way, the country thrives and the government thrives. No one wants to overthrow a government if you're busy making money.
And I think I'm also, I was there sort of 20 years ago, and I think I'm right in saying that it was one of the first big geographical groupings to say the days of oil are now numbered. It's time to diversify. And I mean, part of that was to build the international financial centre there.
Well, that's correct. Sheikh Zayed, in his vision, he realized, you know, when they were doing oil projections, they said, right, we have 30 years left on this well and 40 years left. Yeah. He was the first person to say, well, what actually happens in 30 years' time? If this well runs out, then what are we going to do? So they thought, other countries thought, well, let's worry about that in 30 years' time. So he's like, well, hang on a sec. Let's make sure then by 30 years' time, we're the biggest and the best of whatever we decide to do. So when they say the biggest and the best, if they're building a skyscraper, they want it to be the biggest and the best. Because that's their philosophy. We are winners. Let's have the tallest building in the world. Yeah. If they're building a Ferris wheel, we don't want the second biggest. We want the biggest. Otherwise, let's not do it. And you know, if we're going to have a financial center, let's make sure we get the best people in, and let's make it the best business-friendly environment in the world.
So pride to them is very important.
Massive.
Yeah.
And that's why they have the best airline. They have the best airport. They have the best hotels. They have the best infrastructure. Driving along on the highway, if you speed, you automatically, every car, every year you have to leave a credit card. If you speed, you're allowed to go 20 kilometers over the speed limit. If you go 21 kilometers over the speed limit, you get a fine. And not only do you get a fine, they debit your card. And now it's up to you to prove that you weren't speeding. So they don't waste bureaucracy. It's all automated. It's tremendous.
You very clearly, this is my final point, if I may.
No, do. So I've got one as well.
I mean, you're very clearly a glass half full kind of person, to put it mildly. But yet the world's a very complex place. I mean, obviously, and it seems, you know, from an outside, particularly from these very small islands, to be an increasingly complex place, an incredibly worrying place. What worries you about the world in general? Is it debt? Is it political upheaval? What?
I worry about political upheaval and radicalism throughout the world, in the left and in the right. Debt I'm not so worried about, because when it comes to money, people manage to sort themselves out. I don't see any country I don't see the United States going insolvent. Let me put it to you that. However large their deficit becomes, however much they borrow, they're not going insolvent. They'll find a way around it. They'll sell moon rights. They'll sell Antarctic mining rights, whatever. They're not going insolvent. You know, he who controls the waves waves the rules, and I'm a strong believer in that. What worries me is the radicalism from the left and from the right. And for example, the American political system, with the utmost respect, I feel the political candidates that have been fielded this year are not really a reflection of the greatness of the United States, and they could have done better with both their candidates. And I'm hoping that the man in the street, the average Joe, realizes this and elects a proper leader that can look after the strongest nation in the world. And with that basis, we're going to be good.
That's really fantastic. I mean, I think you echo the sentiments of most sensible people, to be honest with you. I just wanted to go back, if I may, to the Middle East. And you spoke euphorically about the United Arab Emirates, which I understand and did it very well. But Saudi Arabia, it's changed. I was there 2 years ago, and I couldn't believe the change over the last 25 years. But there's still slight cumulonimbus clouds about what can be done and what can't be done. Is it improving?
Saudi Arabia is the Texas of the Middle East. It's the big boys. They are the ones with the big money. They are the ones that realize that their oil's also going to come to an end, and they need to move on to other investment ideas. And I'm very optimistic that their leadership is steering them in the right direction. They have a very substantial conservative population that they have to control too, in a slow way. And I think the leadership is aware of that. And that's why they're happy to see UAE, Bahrain, and the countries around them, the Gulf states, far more liberal. And they were the ones that were comfortable with that. None of this would be happening without Saudi's tacit approval. None of this. The Abraham Accords wouldn't have been happening. The openness of the UAE, Bahrain, Oman wouldn't be happening without Saudi. So they're the linchpin, and they're letting everyone else be the litmus test and allow their local populations to get used to this new world order. They are a real asset to the region.
Fantastic.
Bryan, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely
Could
fascinating.
sit here all
talking
day.
to you.
Fascinating.
Good indeed.
Bless you. Thank you very much indeed, Bryan.
And that's it from this edition of Talking Markets. We'll be back next week. See you then.